Hey everyone, I am MSK, aka Master Swag King, coming at you guys today with another video. And in today's video, we are going to be talking about why Ultimate Spider-Man #1 has sold so well. Ultimate Spider-Man #1 came out in January of 2024, and currently right now, at the time of me recording this video, we are on Ultimate Spider-Man #2. But what made Ultimate Spider-Man #1 sell as well as it did? Because just from the announcement that Marvel Comics made on their Twitter account, and usually, as you guys know, on Twitter, announcements for anything could be very divisive. This announcement that Marvel gave for the premise and synopsis of Ultimate Spider-Man #1 was so overwhelmingly positive. This was going to be a smash hit. But a lot of you guys are probably going to ask me, but MSK, wasn't the Ultimate Universe discontinued? You're actually correct about that. So Marvel had an Ultimate Universe back in the day. As you guys all know, it was a universe where they were going to obviously reimagine their superheroes. And at some point, obviously, Peter Parker died in the Ultimate Universe. You had Miles Morales taking over as Spider-Man. Then later on, Marvel announced that they were going to be discontinuing the Ultimate Universe. Then it was rumored that Marvel was actually going to be bringing that universe back and that they would kind of lead into it with a 4-issue event. Then you would get, obviously, after the 4 issues, Ultimate Universe #1. So the event was Ultimate Invasion, ran for 4 issues. Then we ended up getting Ultimate Universe #1. Then it was also announced at New York Comic Con in 2023 that the first titles for the new Marvel Comics Ultimate Universe would be Ultimate Spider-Man #1, Ultimate Black Panther #1, which also has sold very well, and Ultimate X-Men #1. It was also announced that we would be getting other characters' own solo titles in this universe as well. So I don't doubt that in the future we're going to be getting like an Ultimate Thor, an Ultimate, well, he's called Iron Lad in this universe, but Ultimate Iron Man, Iron Lad, and we're going to be getting maybe like an Ultimate Captain America series, right? But for those of you guys who don't know, this announcement was so good, and it was a proven good announcement from actually DC Comics. So the actual Marvel post was that the Ultimate Spider-Man that we would be getting now would be a Peter Parker who would be married to Mary Jane, having kids. Because this has been a big issue with Peter Parker as a character throughout a lot of the comic book runs, and as well as like even the movies and the animated shows he has also been a part of as well, where it really does feel like that he's always written in a way where he just can't ever have the happy ending. It's always written in some way where shit just gets fucked up for him. There's one comic book run I remember where like he was married to Mary Jane, something happened to her, and he had to make a deal with like Mephisto to lose the marriage. I mean, even if you look at just like the newest Spider-Man movie that came out back in 2021, Spider-Man No Way Home, at the end of the movie, he had to have Doctor Strange erase people's memories of who he was. He had to end up losing his girlfriend, his best friend. And, like a lot of people just get tired of that. A lot of people like story progression in their characters, and it doesn't have to be like super instantly. It just has to be like, okay, this guy is somewhat progressing in his life, because like at this point, there's no reason why this character should be like just always struggling to get it right. He's always like the underdog. He can never have a happy ending. But they gave him that happy ending, and the response to this tweet was so positive that it also caused this book to sell so well. And also, you would know that it's selling super well right now continually is because Ultimate Spider-Man 2 has also been doing very well from what I've been hearing online. So this is also not a new concept, because I do have to give credit to DC here, where the CW show Superman and Lois, that show actually has Superman, who's gone through the trials and tribulations, the origin story and all that. It's just a older Superman married to Lois Lane, and they have kids, right? Because what that shows people is that these characters are progressing, and that's a different style of story compared to the one where it's like, typically these guys are like single, struggling to get the girl, and then they have to fight the villain and everything. So, you know, but you also have to go over to the secondary market as well. Still selling very well on here. Look at this right here. So I bought this variant cover. This variant cover right here. This is the black suit variant. That is selling super well right now. The first print run right here selling for like $65. Now, obviously, if you really want to get into the story, I would just recommend waiting for a trade paperback, because I will give you my thoughts about the story later on. If you guys actually want to check out my review of Ultimate Spider-Man #1, it is up on the channel. So, Marvel's first big hit of 2024 is Ultimate Spider-Man reboot with wife, a kid, and Uncle Ben. The new Ultimate Universe is finally a success 3 projects in. Well, we'll have to see how many more can be as successful as Ultimate Spider-Man #1 and Ultimate Black Panther #1. Marvel has its first big comic of the year, with the new Ultimate Spider-Man #1 proving to be a success with critics as well as cash registers. The issue, by Jonathan Hickman and Daredevil's Marco Cicchetto, sold out on its release day, leading to a second printing and now a third printing just a week later. How well did the issue sell? Well, it took up an impressive 8 of the top 10 sales slots on covers price tracking of the week's comics sales activity. Thanks to the multiple variant covers available for the issue, with an aftermarket online sales bump of 340% for the primary cover by the end of the week. Online chatter for the issue, meanwhile, included comments like, "Everyone who's ruined Spider-Man for the past 20 years is going to get vaporized like a DBZ villain," and "expertly written, beautifully drawn, and a near masterpiece of a single issue." Multiple tweets, X posts, I guess, included variations on "We are back" as an explanation of how excited they were to see this particular variation on the character. All in all, it's safe to say that the issue was a hit. That's a good thing. After all, Ultimate Spider-Man #1 wasn't just the first issue of a new Spider-Man series, but the launch of Marvel's revised Ultimate line, an event that had been teased by no less than 2 earlier projects last year. Ultimate Invasion, a 4-part series theoretically setting up the new Ultimate Universe, and the subsequent Ultimate Universe one-shot issue intended as a teaser for the ongoing comics that would make up the new line. The new Ultimate Spider-Man was notably a far bigger success than either of those 2 earlier titles, a fact that's likely come as a significant relief to everyone involved in their production. The final issue of Ultimate Invasion, for example, didn't even place on the top 50 selling issues in its month of release, according to retailer estimates, and after its debut issue generated little conversation in fan circles. The same was true of the Ultimate Universe one-shot, although that did place in the top 10 for the month. Nonetheless, with sales attrition being what it is, the speedy sellout and reprinting paired with the positive word of mouth feel as if the new Ultimate line has more longevity than might have appeared the case even a month earlier. Well, this is the big problem with when you do events like this, is if these events don't like basically have lightning strike or lightning in a bottle, as you would say, from issue 1, and if the issues kind of like wane out and the story's just dragging, people are just gonna drop it off. Like, that's been a massive issue with comic books, is like you'll have like one issue that'll do really well, maybe even 2 or 3, but when you get to like issue 4, story starts to drag, and a lot of people, if they're not really interested, will just start dropping it off, honestly. Comparing the titles, it's easy to see why Ultimate Spider-Man outperformed the prior releases. Despite being a first issue with all that entails, including the cast, setting the stage for what's to come, and laying out the stakes of the story at hand. Ultimate Spider-Man #1 is the first of the reborn Ultimate titles to actually feel like a comic that exists for a purpose beyond advertising other comic books. Both Ultimate Invasion and Ultimate Universe were ultimately, pun only slightly intended, meta textual comics that existed to explain away the new universe's in story connection to the mainstream Marvel Universe and the Ultimate Universe as was, while also setting up the narrative framework for the new titles that would launch as part of the revised imprint. They weren't telling a story in and of themselves as much as providing extended editorial captions for those who wanted explanations as to what number of universe this one would be in the official Marvel handbook. By contrast, Ultimate Spider-Man number 1 had emotional stakes and a narrative that went beyond simply filling out scorecard stats. No wonder then that readers would respond so strongly to it. The temptation to be snarky and suggest that the secret to making a comic a hit is to make a good comic is there, of course, but a more practical and truthful variant might be to point to how strongly the audience responded to a comic that had a strong emotional core and intent beyond wool gathering. So, my only real issue with Ultimate Spider-Man number 1, and this is something that, Jonathan Hickman does, is just it's a lot of world building. And so if people are coming to this from that Superman and Lois type of, premise, well, there's no actual action in the first issue. He doesn't become Spider-Man until the end of the issue, okay? So, but just that premise alone, and you going into like issue 2, because I bought issue 2. I'm going to be doing a review of that very soon. As long as you can build that foundation, build it off this premise that a lot of people like, I'm pretty sure you'll have constant people buying these books for more months to come. Now, the only thing that I hope doesn't happen is they take, because like this happens with a lot of, media now where, we're just kind of expecting it's just going to become bad because a lot of things end up having it for that way, because this is Marvel in 2024, right? So I hope that doesn't happen, and that didn't happen for Superman and Lois either. So just fingers crossed on that, obviously. It's an interesting thought experiment to wonder just what would have happened if Marvel had brought back the Ultimate line, not with the comics dedicated to advertising the Ultimate line, but with the Ultimate Spider-Man number 1, and simply made a statement that it was unconnected to any previous continuity in the process, or left any narrative explanations until later. Would the line have been more or less successful if its first release had been something like, instead of an explanation of what was to come? Well, I do agree with that. I think, like, if you lead off with Ultimate Spider-Man number 1 instead of all this, then I think it still sells as well as it does. Or you do an Ultimate Universe number 1, like a one shot like this is, where you just have a preview of a lot of the other Marvel heroes getting their own solo titles in that book. Because I actually ended up buying this. I actually will need to read it, actually, but I would hope that books like these are collection of stories to tell you about, the other heroes that you need to get invested into. And you could even still see it on eBay right now. Like I pointed out in earlier in the video, like Ultimate Spider-Man number 1, first print, main variant, $65. Now on eBay, people got to factor in, you have to go to buy it now, actually. So you go to we'll do US only, whatever. And we're gonna go to buy it now. And as you can see, the book is still selling so well. And people are gonna probably ask me, would you get a cheap copy like this one for 20 bucks? It's all up to you. If you're not that invested in Spider-Man as a character and reading the floppies month to month, I wouldn't. But is the story worth this much money? I would say, given how much respect Jonathan Hickman has put on Peter Parker in the story, and given what is to come from the setup from the story, because it's not a bad comic at all, if you have the expendable cash, I'd get it. But I really wouldn't pay like these big exuberant prices for the book, though. I think $20 max is what I pay for it. That's my own personal opinion, because I don't think this specific floppy is like a book that I would pay like $100 for. And maybe if you're stretching it, you could get like this variant for like $35. But because for the most part, he doesn't become Spider-Man until the end of the book, and there's no actual action in the book. There's like a cameo of Green Goblin. That's pretty much it. But the heart of the story is there, and the setup is there. But what do you value in a story? Do you value setup for the characters to, have that already done, so that point is covered, so that when you get to like issues 2, 3, 4, and 5, we can start having a different story come into play that's not having to deal with all this setup, though. But looking at just how they've treated Peter Parker's character throughout the years, I could fully understand why a book like this has sold as well as it did, or is doing as well as it is currently on the secondary market. People just kind of want to see Peter Parker progress as a character, married, having kids. People like that a lot in stories. So have you guys actually bought Ultimate Spider-Man #1? And if you did, let me know what you thought about this book. Like I said before, you can check out my review of Ultimate Spider-Man #1 on the channel. More videos are coming out similar to this one. I know there's a lot of news coming out right now about movies, TV, and all that stuff. I will be getting to those videos. But I was going to do a Ghost Machine #1 breakdown for a lot of people. I was going to do it in like the Google Slides PowerPoint presentation, but we'll see how that goes. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. I have more comic book reviews coming for you guys. Got plenty of more comic book stuff related as videos coming for the channel. You guys are going to absolutely enjoy them. I'll see you guys later. I'm MSK, Master Swag King, and I'm signing out, guys. See you guys.